No. Right. Assalamu alaikum ji. Today is we are starting off with yet another part, a major section of PMBOK, and that is the third section, and that includes all the 10 knowledge areas. This is the lengthiest session, lengthiest section. It contains 10 separate chapters for each knowledge area, one representing each knowledge area. So we will start off with the integration. I just gave you a little introduction about the integration in the last lecture, but here we will go a little bit of detail. I'll skip certain slides. I'll go into detail of some of them, but anyways these slides are available to you for further study and analysis, and then you can make up your mind and understand it. Basically, there are 10 knowledge areas, as we all know and understand, and out of these 10 knowledge areas, one knowledge area which is called integration is the parent of them all. This is the one which integrates the efforts of all other 9 knowledge areas, and this takes the lead in consolidating their results and ensuring that everything is done according to whatever has been planned. We'll be using certain convention in it. There will be certain diagrams for each of the processes. We have 47 processes, and out of these 47 processes, we would be discussing each one of them in the relevant chapter, in the relevant knowledge area. And once we are studying integration, we will be talking about all the 6 processes of integration which I introduced to you in the last lecture. And these processes are, as you have seen already, would be following this convention which is in front of you. If you can see on the left hand side of the diagram, if you can see the pointer, okay, you can see the pointer now. This type of box is representing the process which is under discussion. This is the process which is under discussion. The background transparent box, lighter gray color, represents the knowledge area of the process under discussion. And white boxes within this lighter background gray box represents other processes of the same knowledge area, but these processes are not the focal point of this discussion. So actually we are discussing the darker gray box, and if there is any relationship with any other process from the same knowledge area, that would be shown in the same background. So there might be things coming from white boxes to this gray box, like some integration process, some other integration process is giving something to the current process under discussion, or some output from the current process is going to some other integration process, or the one which is being discussed, then that would be shown in the same background. And they will be connected through these kind of arrows, dotted black arrows. Dotted black arrows will connect the processes of the same integration area, which same knowledge area which is being under discussion. All other interactions with other processes of other knowledge areas or any external entities, as shown on the right hand side, would be shown either on right or left. On left side, if they appear, that means that something is being input into the process under discussion. And if these boxes are shown on the right hand side of the diagram as it is right now, then the output would be going to these. And the arrows connecting these outside boxes, either from the right or the left, would be shown by dotted gray lines as shown here as process flow. I think the things will be made more clear as we move ahead, and if you can somehow relate to the six processes of integration we discussed in the last lecture, you would be able to make it out, but I will show them again to you, and that thing will be much more clearer later on. But this is just the basic convention, and this legend shows that data flow diagram, how it all acts. But don't really be confused about it, because we are not, we will understand it once it comes to that. Integration knowledge area. This knowledge area is the most important one from the point of view that it is leading all other knowledge areas. It is responsible for consolidating the results of all the knowledge areas. The project management plan is created in integration by all other plans contributing to it, and then it is executed as a whole in execution, where again integration process is leading the execution of the project, and then monitoring and control also this is leading. So because it is leading, whether any other knowledge area is contributing to that specific process group or not, but integration will always be there, because whatever is happening in a process group, that is led by one of the integration processes, at least one of the integration processes. And as you can see on the next slide, there are 6 such processes which relate to the integration knowledge area. Why are these 6? If we agree with the point that at least one integration management process is to be present in every process group, it makes 5 process groups and 5 integration management processes. If these are 6, then there must be one of the areas which is having more than one. One of the process groups is having more than one integration processes. And which one is this?
And control. Monitoring and control.
Monitoring and control has got 2 integration processes, and as I usually call them, the chief analyst is monitor and control project work, and the chief controller is perform integrated change control. Well, these are just my names. So we understand the process, integration process in initiation, which is leading, is develop project charter. The planning process group is led by the integration process, develop project management plan. The execution is led by the process, direct and manage project work. And as far as the monitoring and control is concerned, we have got 2 processes. One to look after all the analysis part of it, which is called monitor and control project work. And the other, which deals with all the change requests, it is called perform integrated change control. And lastly, while we are closing the project, in the closing process group, the leading process is close project R phase. This also relates to integration management. So we have already gone through these various processes in the last lecture. Very briefly, I just skipped them through. Okay, what is the purpose of integration? As I was just defining, integration identifies, combines, unifies, and coordinated various processes and project management activities within various project management process groups. So the only work integration plays, the role it plays, is to unify everything, consolidate, combine, and then coordinate the work of all other processes as a leader. So integration will have the overall responsibility. जी रिजवान साहब.
सर आइडेंटिफाई तो हर उसने प्रोसेस ने, हर नॉलेज एरिया ने अपना करना होता है, तो इंटीग्रेशन कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करता है प्रोसेस को?
You see, once you are in lead position, although there are processes separately available for each one of the knowledge areas, but it identifies the work out of it. What is the output of each one of those processes that is identified, and then the result is combined together, unified and coordinated as if the overall purpose of that process group is coordinated together, and we can come out with a single responsibility. Integration takes on that responsibility to yield that specific result. Ji Rizwan Sahab.
ठीक है सर.
प्रोसेसेस को आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर रहा, बट प्रोसेसेस के रिजल्ट को आइडेंटिफाई कर रहा है और उसको यूनिफाई कर रहा है और उसको एक सिंगल पार्टिकुलर पर्पस के लिए जो उसका उस पूरे प्रोसेस ग्रुप का मकसद है. मिसाल के तौर पे प्लानिंग इज द पर्पस ऑफ द प्लानिंग प्रोसेस ग्रुप. सो every knowledge area works for planning, but that is unified into one whole project management plan and presented as an artifact which is to be used in all subsequent process groups.
सर जिस तरह प्लानिंग ने अपने प्रोसेसेस को आइडेंटिफाई किया तो उसने कहा कि ये इनपुट है, ये आउटपुट है, उस आउटपुट को ही आइडेंटिफाई करेगा.
Yes, it will identify those things which have to be put together for implementation or execution purposes. As you remember, we said that all the management plans and all the baselines have to be put into a project management plan. Whereas we have separated the project documents because those were good enough for creating the baselines or creating the overall project management plan, but they were not contributing towards the execution. So the identified items which are useful for execution have been separated, consolidated into a project management plan, which will then be the reference point to work on. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, right. So these are the basic features of integration, that it identifies, combines, unifies, and coordinates. And these characteristics of unification, consolidation, communication, and integration that are crucial for controlling project execution through completion. Throughout the life of the project, we have to have a controlled mechanism by which we can ensure that project does occur in the way it is supposed to. It is yielding not only the basic requirements, meeting the requirements, as well as fulfilling the needs and expectations of the stakeholders. As we have been talking about it already, that we are doing this project to meet certain objectives. Those objectives we have got certain requirements to meet. So that would ultimately result in a description of the product. The scope of the product would be defined, and to fulfill that scope and also to fulfill the stakeholder needs and expectations, we will create the plan, we will execute the plan, we will monitor and control it and all that, and that all is done through the prime usage and importance of integration management as such. Now, at the integration level, we will have to make various decisions, and that may be the allocation of resources. The risk knowledge area have identified there is a big risk coming our way, and we probably have to do something about it. So certain resources are required to be allocated for that purpose. So the integration will take care of that. It may make certain trade-offs amongst competing objectives and various alternatives. Like you see, what are the objectives? What are the project objectives? Can you help me out on that? What are the project objectives?
Sir, that the project may be completed within the baselines.
Baseline. What are the baselines?
Cost and time, sir.
Scope, top, and
Yes,
time and cost. So these are the three project objectives: scope, time, and cost. And when we are in a fix, we are to make a decision. Sometimes we have to balance among these three objectives. Sometimes time becomes of more importance, and we may have to sacrifice cost on that. we may have to sometimes sacrifice scope. So what trade-offs we are to make, this is to be decided by integration, because integration can look at the things from a higher perspective, from a holistic view, and therefore it can help us decide what to do and which objective has to be given priority. You might have seen that in several projects where uh, money is of no importance, but the prime importance is time. We want this huge structure erected in, say, next 6 months. Take example of UAE, Dubai. Whatever construction work is going on there, money probably is not their main concern. Their main concern is time. So they are ready to spend as much money as possible. But naturally, that might not be the case with your projects. We are not all very rich people. The projects in countries like Pakistan, they cost and budget could be a major concern. It could be the major objective, and maybe we may sometimes sacrifice time for cost, for saving cost. Or maybe if sometimes it is possible, we reduce the scope of the project to spend less money or whatever. There could be other reasons also, but this could be one of the reasons. Like you see, the motorway, when it was planned, it had to be much more wider. But later on, the scope was reduced. Many lanes were eliminated from the plan, and ultimately whatever came out was still workable, but it was not meeting all those objectives which were initially set. So we worked on an alternate plan and we landed into some, I don't say that project was a failure. Project still is a success, because whatever was done through a proper change control procedure or mechanism. So the overall plan or the scope of the work was accordingly amended and yielded into whatever we have now. Then managing the interdependencies among various project management knowledge areas, like the 10 knowledge areas we are talking about here, and under integration we have got 9 others. These 9 other knowledge areas, how they fit together with each other. And they do, because each knowledge area does not interact, does not yield results on its own. If you have to fix a quality issue, that might impact other areas. Like you see, if you have to come up with good quality, maybe you decide that you have to outsource certain items, so that gets into the area of procurement. And if you do that, you will be spending a little more money. That gets into the area of cost, and it also may have some impact on the quality, on the time, and so on and so forth. So these are various knowledge areas interdepending on each other, and it's not only the competing objectives we are talking about the interdependencies amongst various knowledge areas, and all of these actually work together to yield the desired result. The project management processes, the 47 processes we are talking about, are usually presented as discrete processes with defined interfaces, while in practice they overlap and interact in ways they cannot be completely detailed in PMBOK. Now, what does that mean? That essentially means that although we say that these are the 47 processes, but they do not happen in isolation. Each of this process might be interacting with other processes while it is happening, and there is a lot of interaction, a lot of overlap and interaction going on all the time, and only then is it made possible that we ultimately can achieve our results. And the various possibilities how these various 47 processes can actually work together could be numerous, and rather I would say there are infinite options or infinite alternatives available to us, that how these things can be joined together and how they can interact with each other, which cannot be encompassed by this PMBOK guide, but at least it has given us a direction and it has shown us that this is how we can move ahead. You see, this is a guideline, and this guideline is helping us in many ways. Before we did not have this. We were completely dependent on our personal experiences, whether we even did not know that whatever we are doing, are these the good practices or not. So we were adopting some bad practices. We were doing a lot of ad hoc job. Now, if there is an uncertainty even after this PMBOK, that is probably because we cannot predict how the project is going to yield results. Every project is different from the other project. So that much of uncertainty can be handled. But if we are following the good practices, probably we will capture a lot of ground and we will be able to better manage the things. From the previous situation when we did not have any rules, we did not have any good practices, and we were doing wrong practices or bad practices, and we did not know that. Okay, talking about each one of these processes, I will not read out the whole thing, but generally we understand that in developing the charter, we developed the charter and we did describe it somehow that this is the responsibility of the sponsor. Project manager can help him in the development of the project charter, but this project charter is basically the formal authorization, and this recognizes the mere existence of the project. This is the formally, this is the first time through this charter that we recognize, yes, this project does exist, and we assign the responsibility to a project manager, and we give him the authority to mobilize the resources. So charter is that kind of a document. It is that kind of a formal authorization, and it recognizes the existence of the project. Without this document, there is no existence of project, no beginning point for a project. So although we are not really using this thing in practice in our daily life projects, but we should, because we always are at loss to understand which point of the project should be called the beginning of the project. So I don't say that you start calling the charter as the beginning of the project. You may call anything as your first step, but at least charter gives you a starter. It moves you into the world of project management. Develop project management plan, we clearly understand that develop project management plan commands and leads all other 9 knowledge areas, helping them develop their plans and then consolidating them all together in one project management plan, which includes all the instructions about all the 9 knowledge areas, but also includes the final version of the plan which is to be executed, which we call the baselines. The 3 baselines are scope, time, and cost. And once the project management plan is created by the end of this process, then we are ready to execute it or implement it, and that is done through direct and managed project work. And this process is leading and performing the work defined as per the project management plan and implementing whatever change requests have been approved. But from where are these change requests coming? This is not the responsibility of this process to approve the change request. Yes, it can request certain changes, it can move a change request, but as far as the approval of the change request is concerned, that is not the job of direct and managed project work, and therefore it is dependent for that on the next process, which is monitor and control project work. Monitor and control project work is the brains behind it. As far as the direct and managed project work is concerned, that has absolutely no authority whatsoever to change the plan. It can request the change in plan, but it cannot change the plan by itself. And all the authority of making changes to a plan are held by the monitor and control project work, and there is a complete procedure defined there how we get to that. So monitoring and control project work, along with its subordinate controls of all the various knowledge areas, this is the process of tracking, reviewing, and reporting the project progress against the performance objectives defined in the baselines. of the project management plan. So all the three baselines in the project management plan, they are the templates to meet. We actually want to work exactly according to the baseline. Well, we do understand that whatever we plan, there might be certain things which were not really certain, and we could not have planned them well. It is not our ignorance. It might be, the nature of the project that it cannot be very certain. In that case, there is a complete change control procedure. So we will do the detailed analysis of each and every happening which is not occurring according to the project management plan, and then we would move the change request, and monitor and control project work is leading that effort of creating the change requests. Where do all these change requests go? All the change requests which are created, whether they are created in execution, whether they are created by any of the stakeholders, or they are created by any of the controls within the monitoring and control process group, they all may yield change requests, and these change requests are received by the process perform integrated change control. This is the process. This is the basket where all the change requests are dropped. And all these change requests are then processed here. They are approved or rejected, or whatever decision is to be taken on each one of those change requests is taken here. And if a change request is approved, then accordingly, if there is to be a change made, update made to the project management plan or any of the project documents we created earlier in the planning, that is then done only after the change request has been approved. What if a change request is not approved? The news about the disapproval is to be sent back to the source and also to execution, as if execution should not take it as granted that a change request is moved by someone and it will definitely be approved, and so we should start working that way. No, they can't do any changes by themselves. If a change request is not approved, they are intimated that this change request which you requested or someone else requested is not approved, so you stay put. You keep working as you were working before. So that's how the integrated change control ensures that proper change control procedure is followed. Now, between the execution and control, monitoring and control, you see, if the things are not turning into the right way, if the things are not, if there are uncertainties and plans are continuously changing, then the change requests are being moved and the plans are updated, and therefore we will keep rotating between execution and monitoring and control until and unless the objectives of the project are met. As soon as they are met, there is no more a change request, and therefore the work must be done. We check the deliverable, and if it is approved and there is no more change request, there is nothing else to amend, then probably a job is done. And then we move on to the close project or phase, where we finalize all activities across all the project management process groups, and we give it a clean sheet that this project has done what it is supposed to do. It has resulted in whatever the deliverable it is supposed to make, and everything about this project is done. Therefore, it may be considered as closed. The deliverable, the end product is delivered to the customer, and all the assets of the project are submitted back to the organization. And remember, when the project is closed, there is nothing outstanding. You can't have any physical or non-physical asset existing about the project after the project. Project is closed, no manpower, no bank accounts, no physical assets, tables, chairs, offices, nothing should exist after that, because the purpose of the project is done. The project is no more. And if it is no more, there cannot be any assets, there cannot be anything else. All the documentation is recorded with the organization in their archives. Okay. The need for project integration management is necessary in situations where individual processes interact, and we do know that they do interact. For example, cost estimate needed for a contingency plan involves integrating the process of cost, time, risk, and so many others. As I was already giving you some examples like that. When additional risks associated with various staffing alternatives are identified, then one or more of these processes may be revisited. Because they interact with each other. If one thing changes, that affects the others. And this is exactly why these are the things which are also known as constraints. Please do not confuse objectives with constraints. Scope, time and cost are the project objectives. They are also the project constraints. But as far as the constraints are concerned, these are not the only three constraints. There are other things like risk is a constraint, communication is a constraint, so many other things. Quality is a constraint. There could be many constraints. But as far as the project objectives are concerned, these are only three baselines. And whatever the project is being done, that can be defined around scope, time, and cost. These are the project objectives. So the project deliverables may also need integrating with ongoing operations. Now, how a project deliverable is to be integrated with the ongoing operation? Why are we producing a deliverable out of a project? Maybe this is an internal project and the deliverable of the project is ultimately to be adopted by the performing organization or the organization which has requested it, or maybe both performing and requested organization is the same. My own organization requested it and we were also the performing organization. Whatever we have produced, the end result, the project deliverable is ultimately to be adopted by our own organization, and that's how it is to be integrated in our own operations. If it is to be delivered to an outside body, to a customer, then that customer will adopt the deliverable in their operations. Project integration management also includes the activities needed to manage project documents. To ensure consistency with project management plan and product service or capability deliverable. Why are project documents important and what are project documents? Let me ask you about that, and I hope we are already clear about it. Just a minute, let me switch on your speakers. Okay. Yes. I'm talking about project documents. What are these project documents and how do they play their role?
प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट प्लान और बेसलाइंस को निकाल के बाकी जितने डॉक्यूमेंट्स होते हैं वो प्रोजेक्ट डॉक्यूमेंट्स में इंक्लूडेड होते हैं.
Right. And why are they important? जी, why are they important?
Because उसमें गाइडलाइंस होती हैं, सिर्फ बाकी जो काम करने होते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल शेड्यूल्स उसके अंदर होते हैं और वो सारी चीजें जो जरूरी हैं प्रोजेक्ट एग्जीक्यूट करने के लिए. सर
गाइडलाइन किस में होती हैं गाजी?
सर जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स उसमें होते हैं, जो प्रोजेक्ट डॉक्यूमेंट्स का पार्ट होते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल RFIs हैं, RFPs हैं, इसके अलावा शेड्यूल्स हैं,
उनमें गाइडलाइन नहीं होती. उनमें गाइडलाइन नहीं होती. गाइडलाइन सारी की सारी मैनेजमेंट प्लान्स के अंदर होती है. स्कोप मैनेजमेंट प्लान, रिक्वायरमेंट मैनेजमेंट, कॉस्ट मैनेजमेंट, दीज आर द गाइडलाइन. उनके अंदर एक्चुअल वर्क होता है, एक्चुअल कैलकुलेशन, एक्चुअल डाटा होता है उनके अंदर. आपने कहा कि जनाब इस प्रोजेक्ट की एक्टिविटीज क्या होंगी and you did exercise and you created an activity list, then you developed a sequence. So all these documents are being stored, but the net result of all these documents was the schedule. That schedule you have baseline and you have taken it to the project management plan. But all those documents are procedures which you did to reach to the level of that baseline are helpful to you to amend all those things when any change request comes. Therefore, these documents, project documents, which are although lying as a separate archive, they are extremely important to you. They're extremely important to you. Are we clear about it?
जी सर.
Okay. Most experienced project management practitioners know there is no single way to manage a project. Now this is very interesting. Well, there is not a recipe for a project. Projects are different from each other, and even if there is only one project, you and me will do it in a different way. So we all will have a different approach. So there is no one solution for doing the project. And maybe you can achieve the results from all these ways. Now it is not up to you or me to decide that which is the most efficient and effective way of doing it, but still everyone tries and should try to optimize the results and do it as best as you can. But again, I would say that there is no single way of managing a project. That they apply project management knowledge, skills and required processes in a preferred order with varying rigor. Now we have got 47 processes. Which of these processes are to be used and which are not to be used in your project? Your decision. Which of these processes are to be given extra importance and which to be given less importance? So they will be used with a varying rigor, with a varying intensity. However, the determination that a particular process is not required does not mean that it should not be addressed. Still, because it is a good practice, you must consider it and you may decide not to use it. This is all your decision. We are not challenging your decision, but again, as these are the good practices, you must consider that this option is there. This process, what if I have used this process? Will it give me some benefit? And naturally, every point in project manager's life during the project is a cost benefit analysis. All that time he's deciding whether this is good for us or not good for us. So he's always doing this analysis and making decisions accordingly. So if you really think so and you decide that a specific process out of these 47 processes is not required by you, I do not challenge your decision. I honor your decision. You are the project manager and you know better. The project manager and the team needs to address every process and the project environment to determine the level of implementation for each process within the project. You may not use a specific process to that detail, but still maybe you may hint on the use of that process up to some extent. Or as I said, you must consider, even if a process seems useless to you, you must consider to use it if at all possible. If not, then the decision is yours. If a project has more than one phases, the level of rigor applied within each of the project phases should be appropriate for each phase. Now, as far as the phases are concerned, I have discussed them with you. What are these phases? And with the rigor each phase has to be addressed might differ. You see, because you have divided your project into 5 phases, say 5 phases, so each phase is to be treated as a separate project. For one project, maybe we have more importance towards a specific, quality is more important than that. So all the quality processes, I am doing it with more rigor and more intensity. In the next phase, maybe my priorities are shifted towards something else. So there might be level of rigor is different for each phase. This determination is also addressed by the project manager and the project team. As we have stated earlier, the overall responsibility of this choice, which processes to choose and how, lies with the project manager and his team. It is not only the responsibility of project manager. This is project manager and his team. It's always the project manager and his team. Some integrative activities performed by project management team are the general guideline what integration actions project we do in various of the integration activities. We develop, review, analyze and understand the scope. That include the project and product requirements. You see, all the things which are listed here will give you a sensation that probably everything is done by integration, and that is not wrong, because integration is the boss. Everything done under its command is basically the boss's credit. Integration takes the credit of scope, of time, of cost and everything happening in project. So the project and product requirements, criteria, assumptions, constraints, then transforming the collected information into the project management plan, performing those activities, measuring and controlling those activities, measuring the progress, taking appropriate actions to meet the project objectives. All these things are actually the integrative activities. If they are not properly integrated, then they will be scattered around. They would not be talking to each other, and ultimately we won't be able to yield the same results. So the task involved generally would be conduct project selection methods. Now this is interesting. Why are we talking about project selection method? Are we going to select the project at this stage? Not at all. But this is a tool to be used. And you remember, this is, although we said that when the charter was written and given to the project manager, whole of the responsibility was shifted from the shoulders of the project sponsor to the project manager. But till that time, project charter was not given. For that time, all the responsibility was squarely on the shoulders of the project sponsor. And also remember that project sponsor is a person who may be looking after more than one project at a time. And he might have more than one options for the project to start. So if you are a project sponsor, you have been given 10 different viable projects to start, and you have been given funding sufficient only to start 3 projects. You have to prioritize your projects. You have to do the selection methods, and you have to select, choose and decide which projects are most viable to be done. I am not discussing the role of portfolio here. I am discussing the role of project sponsor. Whatever decisions the portfolio will make, they are higher level decisions. But even the sponsor may have the option, and he may decide which project to choose and which not to choose. And I'll talk more about it when we talk about various selection methods. Then define the scope, then document the project risk, assumption, constraint, as I said, develop the charter, obtain the charter approval, identify and perform the stakeholder analysis. This all, most of these things are done in initiation and planning. Now, how do the projects come into being? Initiating a project is the formal recognition that a project or the next phase is an existing project, R phase. This is a formal documented way of recognizing a project or a phase. Because I said a phase is also to be treated as a project, so a phase will also be initiated, and there will also be a charter for each phase. This thing we normally do not understand. We only talk about the charter of the project. We do not talk about the charter of the phase. But phase also is to be given a charter, and every phase has got its own product. Maybe the product of one phase becomes the input to the next phase, but every phase is to be treated as a project, and every phase exercises all the 5 process groups. So it should begin, and resources should be committed to the project. The business might drive the need for a project, customers might demand changes to products, or legal requirements might create the need for a new project. So these are the business drivers which will force you, number 1, to start a new project, and when you have started the project, these drivers may change, and ultimately the strategic objective may be reoriented, which may mean the project to be realigned with the strategic objective, and this is the uncertainty we are dealing with in the project. The things which were told to you in the beginning of the project may not hold true till the end, and you have to tailor your project according to the upcoming needs of the project. As far as the needs and demands are concerned, why these projects come into being, so these are some of the reasons why these come into being. Like, there might be the market demand, there might be strategic opportunity or business need. Maybe the customer has requested certain product from you. There might be some technological advancement in the market and you want to follow the track. There might be some legal requirements which bound you to take certain steps. Ecological impacts, like like the earthquake which came in Pakistan. After that, there were certain requirements added to the building construction. There could be certain social needs, like a lot many organizations are supposed to donate a percentage of their profit for certain purposes, maybe for the betterment of the society, maybe for some other purposes. Like there is a R&D fund which is collected from all of the mobile operators, and there is a IT and IT R&D fund which is used for certain IT initiatives in Pakistan, that kind of thing. But that is a portion of the profit of the mobile operators. Feasibility studies are undertaken for several reasons. Like you see, in a way, when I said cost benefit analysis is something we carry out all the time. Whenever I have to make a decision, I have to compare the cost and benefits and ultimately decide. I'm not saying that it is the feasibility, but this is the basis of the feasibility, and I do conduct feasibilities all the time in my life. If I go to market, which toothpaste to buy, I look at the price, I look at the content and the ingredients of the two toothpaste, and then ultimately decide on one. Basically, I'm doing in my mind the cost benefit analysis, and I have found it feasible to buy a specific one. But here, in what meaning this feasibility study is meant is whether the project we are undertaking is good enough to be taken up or not. So if it is not feasible, why should we be spending money on it? So there should be proper feasibilities carried out, based on which we should be then committing money for that purpose. To determine whether the project is viable, to determine the probability of success, to examine the viability of the product, service or result, to look at the technical issues related to the product and determine whether the technology proposed is feasible, reliable and easily assimilated into the organization's existing technology. I could talk a lot about each one of these points, but I am sure that you are able to conceive by just reading them what they mean. You see, sometimes there are projects which look very feasible, but ultimately, if you do statistics, second point, if you do some statistics, you say, well, there is not a big probability of success. This is a very risky project we are getting into, and we are spending a lot of money on a chance. So probably, should we do it or not? Probably not. Similarly, we can go for, there might be a lot many technical issues related to a project. Like, although the things are feasible, but technically this is not really very sound. So we will talk about, when we talk about the feasibilities, there are three different layers. We have to look at the strategic aspects, we have to look at the technological aspect, and then we also have to look at the economic aspects. These are the three layers you have to do your feasibility within. Feasibility studies might be conducted as separate projects, as a sub-project, or as a phase of a project. You could decide how you want to do it. Sometimes for very large projects, you say we have to construct a dam. And naturally, this is a huge investment we are talking about. So it is not only that we start the feasibility study of that dam as a separate project, but it will cost a lot of money. There might even be a pre-feasibility of a feasibility, whether the feasibility study should be carried out or not. Because the feasibility study itself will cost about 1 to 2% of the total project cost. That is a huge money as far as such a big project is concerned. Therefore, even the feasibility study is going to be very expensive. So you first conduct in-house pre-feasibility study, whether we should be going for the pre-feasibility or not. It could be, this feasibility thing could be done as a separate project, and if successful, then we decide whether what is the next step and which is the next project we should do. Or it could be a sub-project, and of the big project is the construction of the dam, and one of the sub-projects is the feasibility, and based on the result of this feasibility, the other parts of the project will happen. Or maybe this is a phase of the project. The very first phase is feasibility, and everything else is dependent on that. So you could do it anyways. Depending on your needs and requirements, you have to decide how you go about it. When you don't know the outcome of the study, it is best to treat it as a separate project. You know, when you are entering into a very uncertain kind of situation, like, you know, in research projects, especially in the field of pharmaceuticals, when they set out to invent a new medicine, that is a very huge project. The project size in pharmaceuticals, normal project size is 7 to 15 years. 7 to 15 years is a normal project size for a pharmaceutical project. On the other hand, an IT project may be as short as 2 weeks or maybe 3 months. This is good enough time for that. A construction project may be from 6 months to 5 years. So every industry has their own needs and requirements. But you see, in a pharmaceutical industry, because of the high uncertainty, we don't really know what is going to be coming out of it. Therefore, we have to consider that, and we have to our next step is dependent on the result of the first step. The group of people conducting the feasibility study should not be the same people who will work on the project. This is a very important point, and we do not honor it normally. We do not honor it normally. Why I am saying that is because normally it is said that project manager is, you know, predefined, that this person is going to be the project manager. He is with us from the very beginning. He is involved in the feasibility. You see, what you are trying to say is that you have yet not got a project. It is yet in the feasibility phase, and you still have a project manager already. How is that possible? From where the funding for the project has come when the project does not exist as such? Feasibility is the preparation for this project, and it is going to decide whether this project will be done or not. How can you start spending money on a project which has yet not started? Therefore, the project manager cannot be hired even before the feasibility. Even if you say that yes, you are right, we are not hiring the project manager, but we know the person we will appoint as a project manager, and he is involved with us in the feasibility, and he knows better. Fine, very fine, this does happen. But at the same time, is it wise to use the same person who did the feasibility to be put as the head of the project? This person who is creating the feasibility is supposedly biased. He is a biased person because he created that feasibility, and he is set out to prove whatever he has found in the feasibility to be true. So he will miss out the facts. He will force himself to those results which were proven in the feasibility. I don't know you have caught the point or not, but basically people who were involved in the feasibility should not be placed on the project work. These should be fresh minds. These should have their own opinion, unbiased opinion. Project team members might have built-in biases, this is exactly what I was saying, toward the project, and will tend to influence the feasibility outward toward those biases. So even if you are conducting the feasibility as a part of the project, the feasibility should be conducted by a third party, because the project team is also biased towards their own, internal thinking, how they want the project to turn out. So they will make the project to turn out the way they want. So the feasibility will prove the same. So better get the feasibility done by outside body. Selecting and prioritizing. Criteria for selection methods will be sometimes purely financial, sometimes purely marketing, sometimes they'll be based on public perception or political perception. There could be many reasons why the sponsor is selecting a specific project to be done. In most cases, the decision is based on the combination of all these or more. So there could be numerous factors, and sponsor should consider all these things before selecting the right project and prioritizing them accordingly. I would say this sponsor is kind of handling a small little portfolio by himself. A small little portfolio. I don't want to exactly confuse it with portfolio, but a little portfolio about 8 to 10 projects he's handling, and he has got limited funding, and he is trying to prioritize them out of that. Most organizations have a formal or at least semi-formal process for selecting and prioritizing the projects. At a higher level, that could be the portfolio, but at lower level, it could be the sponsor himself. A steering committee might be responsible for project review, selection, and prioritization. Maybe there is altogether a committee, a project steering committee sitting up there who would decide which project to be started and which not to be started. A steering committee is a group of folks comprising senior managers and sometimes mid-level managers who represent each of the functional area in the organization. So representation of all various functions or operations or departments should be there in the steering committee, as if the interest of all could be properly catered and considered. Here is how the process works. Selection and prioritization. Steering committee request project ideas from the business staff prior to the beginning of the fiscal year. What projects should we do? Come up with the ideas. These ideas are submitted in writing. A meeting is called for the review of these projects. The remaining projects are prioritized according to their importance and benefit to the organization, and the projects are documented on an official project list. And the progress is reported on the active projects at the regular monthly steering committee meeting. So this is something, above us working for the selection and prioritization of the project. And, don't be confused, but there could be several levels. There could be a portfolio sitting up there. There could be a sponsor working. There could be a steering committee. So you could define in your organization which of the bodies will be playing what role in this selecting and prioritization. There's a lot of detail here. You can read it through, but generally this is what we want to know. Priorities can and do change throughout the year, and whenever the priorities change, you keep introducing new projects and extracting the projects which are no more in the priority. You keep reprioritizing them. Then organizations usually have a process to recognize and screen project requests. When the project requests are received from the business sector, then these requests are properly screened, which are more suited, accepted or rejected, and then prioritized. For doing all this, there could be two major methods. One is a mathematical model, and the other is a benefit measurement model. The mathematical model is based on calculations, and this calculation method provides a way to calculate the value of the project which is then used in project selection decision making. And by mathematical model, I mean that those kinds of calculations which could be done there's nothing hypothetical about them. We know that this is the wall to be constructed and this is the number of bricks we need to have for them. This is mathematical. There's no assumptions in it. So if certain things could be calculated purely based on the mathematics, and the other things we need to run a kind of a benefit measurement comparison kind of a thing, also known as the decision models. And these decision models examine different criteria used in making decisions regarding project selection. Okay, let me move on, leave this thing. Yes, this is important. Now, homing on, let me define one more thing. We did talk about that there could be many things which could affect how the project should be, prioritized, selected and prioritized. But at that time, one thing more can be done, and that is, as I said, generally, there are 3 levels of feasibility or of decision making. The highest level is the strategic level. So if something is of such great strategic importance that we don't care how much money is spent, we don't care if it is in accordance with the technical feasibility or not, but because this is strategically very important to us, we do not care about these minor things and we decide to go ahead with that. So that would be strategic considerations taking priority over all other concerns. Normally, strategy will not try to constrain us in that way. Normally what will happen is that there might not be such big limitations as far as the strategy is concerned, and if not strategy, then the second level is technology. Whatever we are doing, whatever project we are starting, that should be, technically feasible. That should be according to the latest technology in the market. But you see, yes, of course, we do want to come up, if you want to install some automated system, you definitely like to have the latest computers. But what if the latest computers are too much for us? And we could live with an older system and it does work fine for us. We do not want that much power at all. So maybe that is a strategic decision that you say that we do not want to go on the technical viability. You see, as far as the strategy and technology are concerned, these two feasibilities are not mandatory. But if they exist, strategy is at the top priority, technology is the second priority. Normally, both of them may not exist. If they don't, then the only consideration is money, finance, economy, cost. So it all boils down to the cash flows. How much money getting in, how much getting out. The cost benefit analysis is the only method ultimately left to us. But again, I would say that even if we are doing this cost benefit analysis, still we do give due diligence to the technical and the strategic feasibility, and they carry, if they are important, they carry their own marks. They carry their own priority. So that can supersede the economic viability, but if they are not forcing anything down your throat, then it is the money which matters. So there are various methods of doing the cash flow techniques, are the cost benefit analysis. There are only 4 listed here, but the very first one is net profit, which is not written here. The very first one is net profit, then is the payback period, then is the net present value or the discounted cash flows, and then is the internal rate of return, which I'll briefly be discussing later. Rather, I would say I will discuss them in the chapter of cost, because it's cost benefit analysis with something to do with cost, although this is not exactly related to the knowledge area of cost, but because it talks about money and calculations, so I have put it there and we will discuss it there. Now coming back, charter. Develop project charter is a process of developing the document that formally recognizes the existence of the project. Without this document, there is no project at all. There is no proof that there is a project. This is a documentary proof giving due authority to the project manager to mobilize the resource. Key benefit is, number one, a well-defined project start can be defined and project boundaries can be defined. A formal documented record of the project is created. And it is a direct way for senior management to formally accept and commit the project. Now, once we create this charter, the higher level management would, agree to that, sign to it and say, okay, we agree to this charter. Now you can give it to project manager and he can start working. So it's a formal acceptance of the project. This we have already seen in the last class, and I had gone through them, and I told you there is nothing special about it. If you remember, what we did was, these are the 5 things which we have been talking about from the very beginning. We say sponsor gets into the project. He brings along 3 documents: statement of work, business case, and agreement. We have talked about a lot about them. And on top of that, from organization side, we do get 2 inputs: enterprise developmental factors and organization process assets. We use expert judgment of ourselves and of our fellow workers, our experts, our subject matter experts, consultants, whatever, are our friends. We use facilitation technique. We want to, ensure that we have facilitated all those who could contribute to that, and ultimately sort data out of them, and ultimately we end up developing this project chart. The project charter establishes a partnership between the performing and the requesting organization. Well, in a way you can say that as between a buyer and a seller, there is an agreement, there is a contract, and buyer tells you what he wants to buy, and the seller provides him that thing. So according to a contract, they do it. Although we don't say it, but charter is a contract, is a kind of an agreement between the project sponsor and the project manager. Although we do not want to put it in so many words, but this is a commitment. But this is a different agreement, this is a different kind of a partnership, and it has nothing to do with the actual contract. In the case of external projects, a formal contract is typically the preferred way to establish an agreement, and that is with the buyer. If we are doing a project for an outside organization, then we have to get into a relationship with them through a contract or an agreement. In this case, the project team becomes the seller. So what we are doing is, we are selling our services, or we are producing some goods for an outside client. So we are the seller and he is the buyer, and we are responding to the conditions of an offer to buy from an outside entity. We are the outside entity. We are providing him that service or good. Project charter is still used to establish internal agreement. Even if the work is internal to the organization, within the organization, one department is asking another department to help him do something, then this is also a kind of agreement we are getting into. Though it is internal to the organization, it might not be in form of a contract, but still it could be a MOU, it could be just a letter or something, or an understanding, but there is some kind of understanding here. The approved project charter formally initiates the project. Wherever the project charter has been created, this is the understanding between the sponsor and the project manager. But please do not confuse it with the contract itself. A project manager is identified and assigned as early in the project as is feasible. Very important. As is feasible is the key. As is feasible. Do not try to hire a project manager 10 years before the project starts. It is not feasible at all. From where are you paying him? Preferably, while the project charter is being developed, that is the point. When the project charter is being developed, that is the point you should be looking for a project manager. You should not have appointed a project manager 6 months earlier or 10 years earlier and always prior to the start of planning. He should definitely be there before he sets on the job of planning. You can't have planning done by someone else, and then the project manager is being assigned after 3-6 months. That is also not feasible. Project charter should be authorized by the sponsoring entity, the sponsor himself. The project charter provides the project manager with the authority to plan and execute the project. It is recommended that project manager participate in the development of project charter to obtain a foundational understanding of the project requirements. I think this is self-explanatory, and this understanding will better allow for efficient resource allocation to project activities. Now, as far as the initiator is concerned, who could be the initiator? Who could be the sponsor? This could be the sponsor itself, a separate person assigned by the organization to look after the interest of the project. It could be an executive level person, it could be the sponsor, or sometimes the PMO, if that does exist, could also be given the responsibility of initiating the projects. But I would say that is not really a very preferred way of doing it. But yes, if you have got a very mature organization, you have got a very effective PMO, program or project management office, maybe you can do it. And sometimes it is the portfolio governing body, the chairperson of that, who can authorize the representatives. Project initiator or sponsor should be at the level that is appropriate to procure funding and commit resources to the project. He should be a senior person with sufficient powers to enjoy. He should be able to influence the players who are actually going to be providing the funding or the decisions about the project. So he should not be a junior person who is not, who cannot access all the right people to get the project done. Okay, all this thing is based on a business need. Even before the charter was developed, even when we started thinking about doing this project, there must have been some business need in the organization to satisfy which we thought of creating or initiating this project. And once the business need existed, only then we developed a business case out of it. We did the need analysis, we did the feasibility, we created a business case and description of the situation that the project will address. So once all that has been validated, the project can only be chartered after that. A project charter is not considered to be a contract. Yes, I have been saying earlier also, although the contract and charter were discussed in the same page earlier, but it is explicitly said that charter is not a contract. Charter is not a contract. This is just an assignment from a project sponsor to the project manager to mobilize the resource. Authorization. Because there is no consideration or money promised or exchange in its creation. But when we are doing a contract, there is a commitment that this much money will be paid for this. So we are not doing that. This is kind of assignment of a job. Okay, statement of work we have discussed earlier. What is a statement of work? I said, whomsoever is the buyer who decides that they need something which they cannot create themselves, they cannot do some job they cannot do themselves. If they could do it, they would have done it. But if they can't, they probably will be seeking for people who can. So they will describe briefly the work which they need to get done. And that document which encompasses that is called the project statement of work. And normally this is the buyer who creates the statement of work, which briefly describes what do they want, what is the product, what are the major specifications and requirements of that. This could not be a very detailed document. Like, I might have given you that example, but what if you are traveling on your car and it goes out of order right in the middle. What should you do? The very first thing, you try to fix it yourself. If you can't, if it is beyond you, then you think of getting it repaired by some expert. So when you think of that, what is the statement you are going to give to that mechanic what you want done to your car? What is the problem? How you are defining the problem? You must have some idea. Probably it's a problem in the carburetor, or maybe the radiator or whatever. So you could have an idea, but that could be just a layman's idea. It could not be a technical detail. So then maybe you call a mechanic and he comes to you and you tell him your statement of work, or if it is a formal project, you probably give him in writing a formal statement of work, and he says, okay, let me give you my technical opinion how it should be done. So basically I have asked him to uh, ask him for bid, and he is now giving me the technical and financial solution. He's going to propose to me, well, I can fix your car, and these are the technical details, these are the things I have to do with your car, and that will cost this much. This is the technical and financial proposal he has given you, and if you don't like it, you go to another mechanic, and if you like it, you award him this contract. So basically this is the matter of awarding a contract. The person who is acquiring the service is the buyer. The person who is providing the service is the seller. For internal projects, project initiator or sponsor provides the statement of work based on business case, business need, product or service requirement. This is only for the internal project. But if the project, we are doing it for some other organization, then they will create the statement of work. But if it is an internal project, one department to other, then probably sponsor will create that. For external projects, the statement of work can be received from the customer as part of the bid document. Normally, when you get the procurement documents, which are like RFP, RFI, RFQ, whatever. So whatever those documents are, they will contain the brief statement of work. But remember that even before the procurement documents were created, the statement of work was created first. And only based on that statement of work, these detailed requests for proposals and all that was created. And naturally, once I am providing the request for proposal to my bidders, then I am explaining what I want. So I am including the statement of work in that as well. So what it should cover, the statement of work will cover the business need. Why are we doing it? What are the business demands? What are the technological advancements, legal requirements and all that? What is the scope of the product? Product scope description. What are exact characteristics of the product, service, the result we want, and what are their relationship with us? And then is a strategic plan, how it's going to affect our organizational strategic vision, goals and objectives. What if we do this job, will it be good for our organization or not? If it is not good for my organization, why should I be doing it? Even if I am making profit out of it, then the profit is contributing positively to my organizational objective. That could be one of the reasons. Maybe I'm not doing it for profit and I'm just doing it for giving experience to my people. Maybe I'm not charging much, or maybe I'm doing it free of cost for someone, but I want my people to get experience in this area. Probably that is a strategic benefit I'm looking for. So that was a statement of work, and let's move ahead. Business case, we already talked about it. Agreements could be of lot many types. It could be contract, they could be MOUs, they could be service level agreements, letter of agreements, letter of intent, lot many. Even verbal assignment is a kind of agreement. Most of the cases in uneducated people normally go through this verbal assignment, and they honor it a lot. If I just have committed something to somebody, then that is my word of honor. So the verbal agreements are in some part of Pakistan even, they are very famously known and honored. Sometimes in today's technology, sometimes an email can serve the purpose. Email is in many organizations today is considered an official document. Or there could be any other kind of other written documents. Then are the enterprise environmental factors. These are the various inputs we are talking about. And out of the enterprise environmental factors, which are so many, specifically those which will affect the development of the charter would be if there are any common standards or industry standards or regulations which could affect my charter, any organizational culture or structure or marketplace condition. So all those things which could affect my project, and they have segregated these 3 items only out of the long list of enterprise environmental factors. This is the long list of all the enterprise environmental factors, and you see they have picked up only 3, first, second, and the 7th one. Then are the organizational process assets. Naturally, the template for the project charter, the organizational processes and policies will guide me create the charter. Any historical record or old charters from the old projects, lessons learned or any other thing could also help me create this thing. So these are the things I use. I use the expert judgment, which I can take the opinion from these many people, other consultants, SMEs, PMOs, and all those people can advise me on that. Then facilitation techniques. Well, if I want to reach a decision, I could use a number of mechanisms, a number of ways, especially when I am dealing with something which I am not really very clear about. Normally, I try to approach it from different directions. So we not only look at the logical or critical thinking, sometimes we also go for the creative thinking. Brainstorming is a mechanism in which you coin ideas which are out of the box thinking. So we are trying to come up with new ideas. So there are certain techniques which stir up your mind and help you come up with unique and extremely new ideas which are conventionally not used. Conflict management could be a facilitation technique. You know that these 2 people who are sitting in a meeting, they might have conflicting ideas, so you organize the meeting in such a way that the conflicting items do not appear in the presence of these 2 people, and they do not get involved into a conflict. If at all there is a conflict, how best to manage that conflict and get rid of it. Problems will rise, so problem solving, meeting management. When you are meeting with people, then there is a tendency of sitting too long and discussing too much, whereas most of the things we discuss in meetings are not even relevant for the meeting. So normally we do not have an agenda for the meeting. We just call the meeting for just have a catch-up. So meeting management is a very huge skill. And then we develop the charter, and I would say what the charter should include. Just a moment. If you can see this list, this is what a charter should include. You see, PMI does not provide a template or a format. It leaves it on the organizations practicing these things that they should create their own charter, their own format, their own organizational policies will govern the development of the charter in an organization. So create your own format. PMI, if they gave us a charter, a format for the charter, then probably whole wide world would be believing that this is the only way of creating a charter. So PMI did not want to do that. They wanted to keep the ground open, and because you understand there are different kinds of projects and there could be various needs and requirements in various projects. In some projects charter can be short, in some projects can be lengthy. what all should be discussed and could be discussed in a charter are listed here, but all of these items may or may not be there, right? So therefore, you as an organization will develop your own format for the charter, but generally it should give the purpose of the project and it should justify why we are doing this project. The project objectives defined should be measurable. They should not be hazy. And we should clearly be able to define how will the success criteria be established. First of all, I said the objectives should be measurable. I want to have a school constructed of 3-story building, right? So I have given 3 stories as a limit, so it is measurable. And these 3 stories will also help me establish the success criteria. If the first floor is complete, I would consider 1/3 of the project is to be complete or something like that. So somehow we should be able to establish a success criteria based on that. Then charter does not talk about the details. It gives you the higher level requirements. Any assumptions or constraints? Just a minute. Anyone want to say something? Nobody?
Sir, purpose में इसकी need भी आ जाती है ना? Purpose also means need of the project.
Actually, need is covered in the very first heading. Project purpose or justification. You know, justification is the need. This is the feasibility. Justification is the feasibility. The result of the feasibility is justification. So yes, of course, because the business case was developed on the business need, and that justification why should we be doing this project is the justification should be included here in the very first heading. Now I was talking about assumptions and constraints.
So these would be major.
These would be major headings. Yes, of course.
Right.
But you know, there's no limitation. These are not the standard headings. You could add more, you could subtract some out of them, but you should consider all these headings to be somehow included into your format. Okay, assumptions and constraints. I have a very interesting theory about constraints. Although constraints are given and should be given, but I believe that constraints limit your options, not only your options, but they limit the thinking power of your brain. If I am told I have got only this much money available to construct this kind of a building, then I am constrained right from the beginning and I am mentally constrained not to exceed that amount. Even if that is not possible, I am bound by that thought. I can't think beyond it. I did talk about the brainstorming and the creativity technique. So to keep your mind free from any restrictions, although note down the constraints given to you, but do not entertain these constraints immediately. First, when you understand the requirement, try not to think about the constraints and try to imagine how would you do this job in the best possible circumstances where there are no constraints, in the best possible circumstances. So that will give you an expanded view of the whole thing. If I have to construct a three bedroom house, then I would have them this is the ideal design I could come up with. Then I should do another calculation and I should come up with the bare minimum view. What if I have got everything constrained to the minimum? What is the minimum should I deliver? What can I deliver the minimum? When I have got these two views, the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, only after that entertain the constraints and try to see the constraint which has been imposed on you, does it fall between the best case and the worst case? Usually it will. And if it does, that essentially means that somehow you can do it. in the two extremes you have already considered, this is somewhere in between. So I may not be that lavish, I may not be that restrictive, still I can be governed by the constraints. But what if this constraint lies beyond the limits of the best case and the worst case, on the upper side or the lower side? That is a problem then. If it is on the lower side, that essentially means that this cannot be done. That is impossible. Impossible. You understand my point? That is impossible. It should not be done. So I should be warned that we are trying to do something which is beyond reason. And if the constraint is on the upper side, then we are being extra lavish. I have assumed this project to be, the best case scenario, the maximum facilities I have put in, but still I have got, I have been asked to spend a specific amount of money which is much more than what is required. What will happen? Have you ever come across a project which gives you this kind of scenario? You have to spend all that money. How will you do that?
No, sir.
So normally in donor agency projects,
No, sir.
in donor agencies, the progress is measured by how much you spend. And if you don't spend, that is considered poor performance. So if you have not been involved with this kind of scenario, sometimes this could also be, a situation you can be in. But this is the extravaganza, that beyond reason of best case, we are going beyond that. Normally, we are struggling between the best case and the worst case scenario. And as I said, if it is lower, the constraints are so constrictive that they are even below your belt. It's below your minimum possibility level, then that is not possible. But again, I would say for project manager, nothing is impossible. For a project manager, nothing is impossible, because then if you are given so many constraints, we can find ways out of it. And that I leave it to your ingenuity and your thought, or how do you do that. But most of you who are project managers and who have been doing projects, you must have experienced situations where you have invented ways out of the trouble. Invented ways. You did not have funds, you did not have anything, and still you did it. And there are ways you can do things like that. And as I usually give you the example of Nadra. In Nadra, we did that many times over. We were so restrictive, we were having so many constraints, we did not have any money to do the project, still we did it, and we found ways out of it, and so many other things. So you will encounter similar kind of circumstance. Assumptions. What are the assumptions? Normally, where the fact is missing, there is a fill in the blank. I don't know, if say, I don't know what is the size of the current size of the brick which I will be getting, although it is very obvious what is the size of a brick. Maybe there is a new technology and I don't know the current size of a brick which I will be using. So I can, and nobody is able to tell me what is the size of the new brick which is coming up. So I will make the best assumption. That best assumption would be nearest to what it could be, but at the same time it will still be an assumption, and it will only fill the gap. I will be able to calculate things based on that, and all my calculations will be based on that assumption. But this assumption, if found not true, then I have to revise all my calculations. So I cannot sleep over my assumptions. I cannot live with my assumptions. I have to always keep a watch on all the assumptions I have made, and ensure that the facts have yet not revealed which prove them otherwise. And if they do, I have immediately to replace that fact with this assumption and correct the calculations. Because if I leave this assumption here and the actual facts are not accommodated, then whole of my project calculations could be really going for something bad. In charter, though it is not a very descriptive document, it normally is just 1 or 2 pages long, but very briefly you provide a high level project description and their boundaries, what the limits of the projects are, very, few words, few lines, nothing more than that. You don't go in writing thesis. If you have any opinion of any big high level risks, although we will define the detailed risks later in the project, but high level risks must be identified and known and written down in the charter if possible. It could be optional. Summary milestone schedule if available, summary budget if available, stakeholder list if available, but naturally all these things if not available, we will anyways have to do something about them, and we will be working a lot in creating all these documents. Project approval requirements and assigned project manager responsibility, authority levels and all that. Name and authority of the sponsor, who is the person who is authorizing the charter. So generally, these are some of the few headings you could have for the charter. I won't waste more time on charter, and I think I can skip these theoretical details about formalizing and publishing the charter, but these are too detailed, and I believe this is not really required to be known for PMP exam nor for any other purpose. But it is a good read. If you can go through, these slides are from the PMBOK, you can read through them. It is good read. It will give you some wisdom, some good points, but generally I am not really ready to waste a lot of time there. Who is the author of the charter? Again, there is a lot of who and cry about it, that project manager is the author. PMBOK very explicitly says, in some organizations, project manager might write the project charter. Might write. Why? It is not the job of project manager, but he might write. Why? Because his boss cannot write. Right? And if he is writing it from the side of his boss. He is writing it for his boss. And he is writing the opinion of his boss. It is not what the project manager thinks. However, if you as a project manager are asked to write a charter, remember that your name should not appear as the author. You are not the author of the charter. Since the project charter authorizes the project and authorizes you as the project manager, it doesn't make sense for you to write a document authorizing yourself to manage the project. You can't order yourself. The author of the charter should be an executive manager or a sponsor, whatever, external to the project. It should not be living within the project, because the biggest man in the project is the project manager. So this person should be in the organization with the power and authority to assign resources to the project. This is usually called the project sponsor or initiator. And remember, for the exam point of view, charter is authorized by someone external to the project. I'm not saying external to the organization. He is a person from the organization, but he is a person outside of the project. He is not in the project team. Who signs it off? Project charter isn't complete until you have received sign off from the project sponsor. Whatever the project charter has been created, the key stakeholders or the key sponsors, they sign it off. They all agree to it. Maybe, it is a governance body or a committee, executive committee or whomsoever they are, they will sign it off. And project manager does not sign it. He is not even the author of it, and he is not the signing authority on it. He could be a receiving person of that charter. Sign off indicates the document has been read by those signing it and that they agree with its content and are on board with the project. It also involves the major stakeholders right from the beginning. So what I have done is the stakeholder needs and expectations. The most important stakeholders I have taken on board in the beginning, and they are the signatory of the charter, and therefore they own the project and should win their continued participation in the project going forward. If someone has a problem with any of the elements in the charter, now is the time to raise the flag. So I have brought along all the important stakeholders, and if at all there is a problem by anyone, this is the time he should speak against it, or he should keep mum forever. Now this charter has to be properly celebrated. a kick-off meeting with the key stakeholders to discuss the charter and then obtain their sign-off. Signing the project charter document is the equivalent of agreeing to and endorsing the project. All those who have signed the project, the charter, they have actually endorsed the project. The charter will occasionally be revised to reflect new details. Publishing is distributing a copy of the project charter to the key stakeholders. This is called publication. Publication can be printed or electronic format distributed via the company email system or on the company's intranet. So this is as far as the project charter is concerned. Then we create the project management plan. And project management plan, we need the charter, we need all the outputs of all the processes within the planning and enterprise non-reflector process assets. And this we discussed yesterday also. So I should not be wasting a lot of time here. Despite the fact we have read it yesterday, still this chapter is taking all our time. So let me skip unnecessary details. We will just look at, these are the same thing. What are the ingredients of a project management plan and enterprise non-reflector process assets? This chart shows, this is table 4.1 from 4-1 from PMBOK. This clearly shows the leftmost column are the ingredients of a project management plan. This is formally written in PMBOK. So these are all the things. You can see here, all are the management plans. One is the cost baseline. One is the scope baseline, which include the scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary. And there should be a schedule baseline here. Fourth last, schedule baseline. Rest everything are the different plans. And it includes the change management plan, the configuration management plan in it. On top of that, all the knowledge area plans are there. And process improvement is also there, and requirement management plan is also there. So it includes all those things. Everything else we develop in during planning goes to the project documents. Then direct and manage project work, as I said, this is the consolidated execution of the project. So all the baseline, scope, time and cost put together are now to be executed as a united effort. You do not actually execute the time separately and cost separately and scope separately. Basically, all of this is done simultaneously as a one whole. And when you execute your project, when you start doing your activities as per the schedule, then the time, the scope starts getting met, time starts getting spent, cost starts getting spent, and that's how you progress. So things will automatically happen, but they have to be bound together as a one whole project management plan which is being executed. So we need project management plan, any approved change requests and so on. And we don't need to do much here in tools and techniques, because we are just ensuring that whatever is written in the project management plan is being done here. So we just need the expert judgment. We just need a mechanism of project management, information system management, and we conduct meetings, and ultimately if we do things according to the plan, the deliverable will be delivered, which will be checked in monitoring and control. Similarly, the work performance data, whatever is happening, the news generated from the execution, what is happening, this is the work performance data, and this is sent to monitoring and control for further analysis, and then it finds out how well we have performed or what is the problem, and we can even move the change request right from here, or when the data is being analyzed in monitoring and control, the change request could be moved from there as a result of that analysis. But these are those change requests which are kind of necessary, and they do not need any further analysis. They're apparent that this change has to be definitely adopted. And the project plan and documents are updated. These are the various activities we conduct in direct and managed project work, and this is actually the summation of all the work we are doing there. So we are performing activities there to accomplish the project objectives, and we are creating the deliverable, and we are getting the people on board, training them, getting them to work, obtaining, managing and using the resources. So we are actually, when we are executing or implementing the project, we are doing all that. So this is the whole list of all the things which actually is happening on all the 9 knowledge areas on top of integration. But integration again is taking the credit of that all. As far as the approved change or request, there are 3 kinds of actions which could be taken. One is the corrective action. Corrective action is something has gone wrong and you have to put it right. That is the corrective action. Preventive action is something is likely to go wrong and you are providing instructions to avoid that mistake when that occurs. Or you take preemptive steps. And defect repair is if some deliverable has been created faulty, how to fix that. So that is the defect repair. In monitoring and control, okay, in monitoring and control, we have various inputs coming from all of the controls, because monitor and control is the chief analyst and it receives the analysis results of all the controls, and all the controls are from various different knowledge areas: scope, time, requirement, cost, quality, whatever. So all of these controls are conducting their own analysis. They are finding their variances and establishing trends, doing some calculations, doing some analysis, and ultimately reporting it as a work performance information. The thing which was generated from execution was called work performance data. That was the raw data, unanalyzed. Now each control receives that unanalyzed data and it performs all the analysis to it and ultimately refines it into information. So this information from scope is different, time is different, cost is different. All these information get to the monitor and control project work process where they are put together as a work performance report, a consolidated report. Moreover, the schedule and cost, because these things are highly measurable, therefore they will also provide a forecast of the future events as far as the schedule and cost is concerned. So these 2 forecasts, schedule forecast and cost forecast, this is the cost forecast, is received by the monitor and control project work. It also receives the validated changes. All the change requests which has been approved by integrated change control are sent to quality control, which validates those changes, and these validated changes are received by the monitor and control project work. Okay, then we have got work performance information. This is the input. So from where are they coming? All these work performance information are coming from all the controls who actually receive the work performance data and after analysis converted into a work performance information. This is a processed data. And this is put together in, in form of the work performance report. Analytical techniques could be many. You could do statistical tools like regression analysis, grouping methods, causal analysis, root cause analysis, lot many other things. Some you may know, some you may not know, but all those things and mechanisms are to be sometimes used in these various kinds of monitoring and control, depending on the type of project. Mostly we do the reserve analysis, trend analysis, earned value analysis, variance analysis, causal analysis, root cause analysis. FEMA is not very common. Fault tree is for specific purposes. But you see, it all depends what kind of project you are doing. So the relevant tools you use. Work performance report is the output of the monitor and control project work, and this is shared by, it is given to integrated change control, it is given to identify stakeholders, it is given to risk, it is given to procurement, and it is also given in execution to manage teams. Then is the process of integrated change control, which is responsible for, receiving all the change requests, getting them approved from the change control board, and if it is approved, making changes to the project management plan and the project documents, and if it is not approved, then passing on the information that this change request was not approved. Configuration management, a little bit about it. If you remember, I did talk about it, what configuration management generally is. We said change management deals with how a change, any change, could be brought into the system. The mechanism of bringing the change. Change can be uh, highlighted by whom? What is the procedure of highlighting the change? How the change is assessed? How the change request is moved? But is there any format? What is the format? So all these things pertain to a single change. But when a change occurs, what happens then? When a change occurs, that becomes, part of a record. The previous version is stored out somewhere. The new version which we created is now in vogue. Later in future, maybe this version get outdated by yet another version. So keeping the record of all these happenings, all these changes, all these documents, all these deliverables uh, by their version is called configuration management. Therefore, configuration is keeping a record of all the changes, is keeping a record of all the documents, is keeping a record of all the deliverables. So you should be able to, if you want to do configuration management, you should be able to identify the configuration requirements. Then you should have a mechanism of accounting for that. How you would know how well your configuration status is going. You should be able to measure it. And you should be able to verify and audit your configuration. So although this is not the subject of this standard, but there is a separate standard by PMI on configuration management, and that is a very interesting read. But as far as you are concerned, for PMP exam, only this much information is enough for you. You don't need any more. Then approve change request. Ultimately, you close your project. This we have discussed already, and the final product is given to the customer, and the organization process assets are updated. Why do you need analytical techniques here? Because we are closing down the things, and we may have to recalculate something. So therefore, although the closed project does not conduct any decisions, but it is checking, auditing all the documents. So therefore, it is responsible for ultimately handing over the deliverable to the customer. And this is how we come to the end of integration. Although I intended to move ahead and finish off with, at least start with scope management today, but we could not do much, and we could hardly complete the integration. But anyways, we'll see how we proceed ahead. We still are left with how many? 9 knowledge areas left. And I don't know how we would be able to complete it. Whatever, 8 more lectures, 7 or 8 more lectures. We'll do it. There's no problem. Right, Ji. Any questions?
Sir, can I ask?
Ji, please, of course. Why not?
Sir, the input for charter, it said that the business need or business analysis something and the strategic insight in the system. But the input for business analysis is also the strategic orientation of the organization, that why they want to do or what they want to do. And it is again written in the strategic vision of the organization.
You see, the inputs were, what were the inputs of, you are talking about developing the charter.
Yeah, there were 3, sir.
Statement of work, business case, and the agreement. That's it. So what are you?
And the strategic vision, sir.
No, strategic vision was not an input. That was a point discussed in between. But as far as the inputs are concerned, these are the only 3 inputs, and 2 are the enterprise environmental and organization process.
That's okay, sir. I was just mixing between the strategic vision and the business case.
Actually, once you provide the justification and provide the basics, you are ultimately you are covering the strategic needs and all requirements. Orientation is
yes, sir. That was just separate heading, so that's why I was asking.
Okay. Ji, any other questions?
No, sir. Thanks.
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, fine. Ji. Ji, Bharat.
No, sir. Everything is clear at the moment.
Okay. Fine. Then I think call it a day today, and we'll meet tomorrow again. And it is going to be intensive week, and I hope that next week we will be able to do a marvelous work, and we will be at the end of the course for the next week. We need 2-3 days more
Inshallah.
into the next week, next to next week. Okay, thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.